I love wicking pots because I feel secure that I know that the plants can live for a few days without my attention. Especially potted plants, they'll dry out really fast in a drought in the summer. My friend gave me this classic pot plant, and it's a type of wicking pot because it has the saucer. Every granny knows that that's good. It's an open wicking system. By open, I mean that mozzies could get in there into your water and the water can evaporate. It's not necessarily a bad thing because open wicking systems in the garden are really useful. And I'll talk about that in a minute, hopefully. This is a deep saucer. Technically, it's a basin, but we're going to call it a deep saucer. If I put the pot in there, it's going to drown. Especially this Tamarillo doesn't really like it. So I'll adjust the base to the point that I'm going to watch this plant and I'm going to check how it's going, and if it looks good, I know I've got the right height that it likes, because its root systems don't want to be fully wet. They just want, this plant in particular likes a little bit of water, a little bit of wet feet. That's your first type of wicking system. The second type of wicking system, and this is still something that's really useful for in the larger garden setting. Sometimes out in the garden I'm going to plant something that loves wet feet, and I don't always find a spot in the garden that has boggy soil, so I put a basin in underneath the plant. And the same thing goes here. With this pot, it was just losing water, especially if it's not glazed. This one is glazed, but when they're not glazed, they're really porous and they lose water fast. So you could put a basin, this is just an old dish. I've had to use gravel because I don't want it to fill up with soil, but that's not really a bad thing. The classic is you use gravel and then you would have some mesh from an old fly screen, or you can even use a tea towel, and you're going to put that into your base, into your pot. That stores water for the plant inside the pot. The same thing could be applied with this bird cage garden. You put a plastic bag inside, you fill it with the gravel, well, fill it right up. Bird cages that you find on the side of the road actually usually have mesh already, like that, and then you could put another piece there, or you could use the old tea towel. So let's have a look how it worked in here. If you look in here, I've got the soil on top, I've got the mesh, and there is the gravel. It's a little bit fiddly, but it works. What I love about the birdcage garden is it stops the birds from eating it. So this is the third type of wicking garden. This is what the super lazy woman's go at it. This is where I'm putting my potted plant straight into a bucket. Again, it could drown, so I want to make sure that the bucket is not too big so the whole thing doesn't fall in there. This one's fitting quite nicely, but the risk is it could actually seal and form a watertight seal like that. So the way to get around that is I put a chopstick here, and the chopstick is forcing a little bit of an air gap in there, and then I know the water can come out. This system is really good when I don't want to have to drill a hole into the vessel. The bucket underneath, it might be ceramic, metal. In this case, it was actually drowning the plants. This is a ginger, some carrots, sweet potato. It was so tight, it's too tight. So I could have I could go along and, well, use a chopstick, or I could put a support in there just to get it up a little bit. See that I've got the gap there? So now we're moving on to my favourite. way to do wicking, because this works really well with big pots like this banana. Yeah. You can see here that these plants in particular don't really like wet feet. The root line likes to stay away from the water line, and so they haven't formed roots in there yet. You can see that it's suspended by the outside pot. This is a colander. You could use, actually that's from ricotta. You can use all manner of pots. The thing is, it does have to fit precisely. Get it to fit, and it's hanging there. It's a suspended pot, and then you put the hole. You drill a hole, or you can have a vessel that's already got a hole, like this one with a tap. And the roots actually will work their way down to the water. What's happening here is you don't want a big hole, because you don't want to lose the condensation that's forming inside. So on a warm day, the bit of water that's in this water tank down here, it warms up and it forms a little cloud in there. The cloud comes up to the soil, and then the soil laps it up, and that's how it's wicking. And you can see here in this native ginger, it's actually started to form roots to go down to the water. And here, this banana has got roots that are forming when it was in here. And the hole is about above the root line, I think. So this plant, the banana, likes to have wet toes. Here's a project for you. Last year I had some people here to have a wicking class, and we planted basils. It's pretty old basils going to seed. You can see it's yellow because it's probably wanting a little bit more nutrient than it has in this tiny vessel. That was the top of the milk bottle. Cut it off, turned it upside down. What we actually did here, we put hair, a little bit of hair at the bottom. Instead of mesh, you can use your own hair. And this is not tight, ill-fitting actually, it's not a proper lid. But it's enough to stop the soil from just washing through, and it's enough to let the water to wick up. And I do have a hole here. There's a hole about halfway, and that's where you would expect the bottom of the roots to be. That's how you can make your wicking pots.